Welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're tackling something you flagged as super relevant. Mastering interpersonal communication to, get better outcomes.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into excerpts from a simulation exercise designed for interpersonal communication skills development. It's by performance improvement expert Guy W. Wallace.
Oh, okay.
He's worked with companies like AT&T and General Dynamics. So this isn't just theoretical, it's rooted in real-world consulting. What really grabbed my attention, and yours too, it seems, is this idea that there's no such thing as perfect communication.
Right.
It's more about minimizing miscommunication, which is a pretty radical shift in perspective, don't you think?
It really is. We often approach communication as if, it's a simple transaction, but the reality is far more nuanced. Wallace brilliantly compares striving for zero defects in communication to aiming for the same in, say, manufacturing. It highlights the need for constant self-checking and improvement, acknowledging that miscommunication is, well, almost inevitable.
That's a really powerful analogy. We often just assume the other person is receiving the exact message we're sending. So how do we minimize those errors and become more effective communicators if miscommunication is practically unavoidable?
Wallace introduces 4 key communication behaviors that underpin his entire approach. They're like the fundamental building blocks of any interaction.
Okay, let's unpack these building blocks.
The first one is giving information. Pretty self-explanatory. It's the telling part of a conversation. But here's where it gets interesting. Even giving information has its pitfalls. Are you providing the right amount of detail? Is it relevant to the listener's needs? Are you setting the right tone? These are all things we need to consider.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in what we want to say and forget to tailor it to the person we're speaking to. So what's the next behavior?
It's the flip side of giving information. It's seeking information. This isn't just about asking any questions. It's about asking the right questions to gain clarity and truly understand the other person's perspective.
And I imagine the tone and delivery of those questions are just as important as the questions themselves, right?
Absolutely. The way you seek information can, greatly impact the response you receive. It's about being genuinely curious and showing respect for the other person's knowledge and experience.
So we've got giving information and seeking information,
right.
But what comes next?
The third behavior is testing, understanding, summarizing. This is crucial for ensuring that everyone is on the same page. It's about confirming that you've accurately understood the information shared and that there's no room for misinterpretation.
I can see how that would be particularly important in a professional setting where even small misunderstandings can snowball into bigger problems. Right. So what's the final behavior? This is the one I'm most curious about.
It's defend attack, and it's a bit more complex. While Wallace acknowledges it's sometimes necessary, especially in highly charged situations, he stresses that it frequently hinders productive conversations. This is when we let our egos drive the interaction, leading to defensiveness, arguments, and ultimately a breakdown in communication.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do we know when we're slipping into defend attack mode, and more importantly, how do we pull ourselves out? I'm guessing this is where those real world case studies come in.
You got it. Wallace uses these cases to bring these behaviors to life and show how they play out in different professional scenarios.
Okay, before we dive into those case studies, let's pause for a second and make sure we're all on the same page. We've got these 4 communication behaviors: giving information, seeking information, testing, understanding, summarizing, and defend attack. It sounds like each of them has its own set of potential pitfalls, even the ones that seem pretty straightforward. Is that right?
That's a really insightful observation. You've hit the nail on the head. Even seemingly simple behaviors like giving information can be fraught with challenges. We'll explore those nuances further as we delve into those compelling case studies you mentioned.
Perfect. I'm ready to dive in. Tell me everything.
All right, let's jump into the first case study. Wallace worked with product managers at AT&T Network Systems. They were under immense pressure to manage a huge product portfolio, and their success really hinged on how well different teams communicated.
That sounds like a pressure cooker. How did Wallace's approach even begin to address those high stakes communication challenges?
He designed a simulation exercise, mirroring their real world work. forcing them to navigate, complex planning, make decisions with limited information, and juggle conflicting priorities, all while being like hyper aware of which communication behavior they were using.
So it's like a flight simulator, but for communication. That's brilliant. But I imagine it was pretty intense for those product managers. Did they find it helpful, even though it was, probably stressful?
Absolutely. Wallace found that simulating these high-pressure situations, it was like crucial for revealing communication pitfalls they didn't even know they were falling into.
Right.
For example, some product managers realized they were, stuck in that giving information mode, bombarding their teams with data without like pausing to seek information or test understanding.
Right.
This led to, misunderstandings and slowed down the entire decision-making process.
It makes sense that, under pressure, our instinct is to just keep giving information, trying to like gain control of the situation. But clearly that can backfire if it, prevents us from really understanding what others are thinking and feeling.
Exactly. And to make the simulations even more engaging and prevent people from trying to like game the system, Wallace added an element of gamification.
Okay, now you've got to tell me more about this. Gamification for something as crucial as communication. How did that work?
In this case, he used a game board and a system of breaks, good and bad, that forced participants to like adapt their plans based on changing circumstances.
So it was like injecting a dose of reality into the simulation, showing them that even the best laid plans need to be flexible and adaptable. And I bet that also highlighted the importance of clear communication, especially, when things change unexpectedly.
Precisely. Now let's move on to the next case study, this time focusing on labor relations at Illinois Bell. They faced a very different set of communication challenges, dealing with unionized employees, grievance meetings, even arbitration situations where even a slight miscommunication could have, serious consequences.
Talk about high stakes. It makes those product management simulations seem like a walk in the park. In those labor relations scenarios, what did effective communication look like?
This is where consciously shifting your communication profile becomes critical. Wallace observed that supervisors who, relied too heavily on giving information, they often triggered defensiveness in the union representatives.
Right.
But those who shifted towards seeking information and testing understanding, really making an effort to see things from the other side, they were able to de-escalate tense situations and find common ground.
It sounds like they were able to build trust and rapport by demonstrating a genuine willingness to listen and understand the union's perspective. Did Wallace's work with Illinois Bell offer any specific tips on how to make those communication shifts effectively?
One technique he emphasized was the importance of signaling your intention to shift.
Okay.
For example, instead of just launching into your perspective, you might say, help me understand your concerns. Or let me see if I'm following you correctly. Fifth, these simple phrases can signal a shift from giving information to seeking information, creating a more collaborative and less confrontational tone.
Those subtle shifts in language are so powerful. It's like switching tracks on a train. You need to do it carefully and deliberately to avoid a derailment. And speaking of avoiding collisions, I'm curious how signaling can help us navigate those potentially, volatile defend attack cycles.
Let's say someone says something that immediately triggers your defend instinct.
Right.
Instead of firing back with a counter argument, you could signal a shift toward understanding by saying, "That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about why you think that's the best course of action?"
It's like hitting the pause button on your reaction and choosing a more, thoughtful response. By explicitly stating your intention to understand, you create space for a more constructive dialogue. And that kind of self-awareness is at the heart of becoming a more effective communicator, isn't it?
Precisely. It's not just about, what you say, but how you say it, and more importantly, how you respond to what others are saying.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today, from debunking the myth of perfect communication to, exploring these 4 key communication behaviors and how they play out in real world scenarios. But what does this all mean for our listener? How can they put these insights into practice in their own lives?
The first step is simply raising your awareness. Start paying attention to your own communication patterns.
Which of these four behaviors do you tend to rely on? Are there any situations where you consistently find yourself falling into those unproductive defend attack cycles?
It's like becoming a scientist of your own communication. Once you've identified those patterns,
Okay.
you can start, experimenting with those signaling phrases we discussed, consciously shifting from one behavior to another to see what kind of impact it has on your interactions.
And remember, like any skill, effective communication takes practice. The more you consciously apply these principles in your daily interactions, the more natural and intuitive they will become.
It's not about becoming some kind of, communication robot. It's about developing a deeper awareness of how you communicate and honing those skills to become a more effective, leader, teammate, partner, and human being.
Oh.
Well said. And ultimately, that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding. It's about equipping you with the tools to navigate the complexities of human interaction.
Yeah.
With greater skill, empathy, and authenticity.
So as you head into your next meeting, crucial conversation, or even just a casual chat with a friend, think about how you can consciously apply these four key behaviors and signal your communication shifts to achieve a better outcome.
It might feel a little strange or awkward at first, but trust us.
Mm-hmm.
The results will speak for themselves. And who knows, you might even inspire those around you to become more mindful communicators as well.
Now, that would be a truly impactful outcome. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of interpersonal communication. Until next time, remember, even small shifts in communication can create a ripple effect of positive change. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, the common thread running through all these examples is the power of awareness.
Right. By recognizing these four behaviors and understanding their impact, we can make conscious choices to improve our communication, and that's a skill that's transferable to any aspect of our lives. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, it's about moving from unconscious incompetence, where we're unaware of our communication pitfalls, to conscious competence, where we're actively using these behaviors to our advantage.
You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to circle back to, the idea of signaling your communication shifts. It sounds like a simple tweak, but I can see how it could be incredibly powerful in practice.
It really can. Imagine you're in a meeting, and someone's been dominating the conversation with giving information,
right,
instead of interrupting or disengaging. You could signal a shift to seeking information by saying something like, before we move on, I'd love to hear from others on the team. What are your thoughts on this approach?
It's like putting on your turn signal when changing lanes. It lets everyone know what you're about to do and helps prevent those communication collisions. And speaking of avoiding collisions, I'm curious, how can signaling help us navigate those potentially volatile defend attack cycles?
Let's say someone says something that immediately triggers your defend instinct.
Okay.
Instead of firing back with a counter argument, you could signal a shift towards understanding by saying, "That's an interesting perspective."
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about why you think that's the best course of action?
It's like hitting the pause button on your reaction and choosing a more thoughtful response by explicitly stating your intention to understand. You create space for a more constructive dialogue, and that kind of self-awareness is at the heart of becoming a more effective communicator.
Precisely. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it, and more importantly, how you respond to what others are saying.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
right,
from debunking the myth of perfect communication to exploring these four key communication behaviors and how they play out in real world scenarios. But what does this all mean for our listener? How can they put these insights into practice in their own lives?
The first step is simply raising your awareness. Start paying attention to your own communication patterns.
Right.
Which of these four behaviors do you tend to rely on? Are there any situations where you consistently find yourself falling into those unproductive defend attack cycles?
Mm-hmm.
It's like becoming a scientist of your own communication.
It really is, yeah.
Once you've identified those patterns, you can start experimenting with those signaling phrases we discussed. consciously shifting from one behavior to another to see what kind of impact it has on your interactions.
It's about like being intentional, right?
Yeah.
Not just, going through the motions.
And remember, like any skill, effective communication takes practice. The more you consciously apply these principles in your daily interactions, the more natural and intuitive they will become.
So it's not about, becoming some kind of communication robot. It's about developing a deeper awareness of how we communicate.
Yeah.
And really honing those skills to become more effective, leaders, teammates, partners, and just better communicators overall.
Well said. And ultimately, that's what makes, exploring these ideas so rewarding. It's about equipping ourselves with the tools to navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater skill, empathy, and authenticity.
Absolutely. And that's what we've tried to do here today, give you a new perspective on communication and some practical tools to take your skills to the next level.
It's been a pleasure diving into these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable. Until next time, remember, even small shifts in communication can have a big impact. We'll see you next time.